Welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment, we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of major organizations, and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by these people will help our community. Today we have our guest as New York State Assemblyman Stephen Englebright. Assemblyman Englebright represents District 4 in the New York State. He is chair for the government operations and has been instrumental in passing a lot of laws in terms of alternative energy. Let's meet Assemblyman Englebright. Assemblyman, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
It's a privilege to be here.
Thank you, sir.
Wonderful to see you.
Thank you, sir. The first and foremost thing is, how did you get started in politics, and who was your mentor? How did you get started?
I was approached by several local citizens who wanted me to consider running for the county legislature.
Okay.
And they had seen me in various civic settings talking about some of the issues of the day. The year was about 1983.
Right.
And so I've been in office since the year following that gathering, which took place at the home of one of the professors of physics at the University at Stony Brook.
Oh, okay.
And I would say that particular professor, his name is Barry McCoy, has been one of my main mentors. And he's a professor of theoretical physics, which is interesting to have the segue between theoretical physics and politics.
That's what I was going to ask you, that he was not a politician, but he's still, I guess, he was more involved in politics.
He's involved, he cares about what happens in our community,
right.
What happens to our business climate, and the issues that guide the destiny of our region. And so it was an intellectual connection that I valued then and still value.
So first time you ran and you got elected?
And I was elected, yes.
Wow, that's great.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
It was a tight election. I only won by 351 votes.
Oh, okay.
But I did win, and have had the privilege of being returned to office in each election season since then.
Wow, okay. And then in '92 you became an assemblyman for the state.
Correct.
Right. Okay, so that also first time you ran as an assemblyman and you won.
That's right.
So you have a good track record.
Pretty good track record.
Right, right. So you're an assemblyman for the 4th district. So can you tell us what it comprises of, what areas?
Sure.
Basically?
The 4th district is sort of the northwestern quarter of the town of Brookhaven.
Oh, okay.
So it's up against the border with Smithtown, and it runs south to Selden, and embraces the Three Village area, Stony Brook, Setauket, Poquat, as well as Port Jefferson Station, parts of Mount Sinai, Coram, and in the newly redrawn district, Gordon Heights, down in to the Gordon Heights community and that part of Coram as well.
So that has, in a newly redistrict, you expanded your area?
Actually, in a geographic sense, we've had a little population growth, so the actual territory shrank a little bit.
Oh, okay.
We will be running on the new lines this year.
Right, November.
In November.
Now I understand, I read your background and everything, and I understand you were you had a background in geology and biology.
Right.
How does it help you in the assembly?
Well, having a background in science, as it turns out, is very timely for many of the issues that face our state. The ability to analyze, to have some understanding of how things work in nature, translates into issues that relate to human health.
Right.
As I indicated, one of the early concerns that I had was the quality of groundwater and our drinking water supplies here on Long Island. So a technical background is actually useful.
Absolutely,
when you start looking at the policy implications and things such as groundwater and surface water chemistry and the parameters that need to be considered when you're writing law to protect a resource such as water or air or coastal waters. So I've enjoyed having a chance to work on some of the issues that I think we're going to be talking about.
Right.
Solar and hydrofracking and some of the technical issues that relate to really whether or not we're going to have an energy future that makes sense.
Right,
So-
yeah. Yeah, actually, I wanted to, since you have a background in geology and you do know water, how it, underground water and everything. So now there is a lot of talk about hydrofracking. Obviously, Long Island may not be affected much, but mostly upstate. So based on your background, do you think hydrofracking is good or bad? Or what should we do rather?
I'm very cautious about hydrofracking.
Right.
Increasingly, I am concerned that it is a very problematic process. And so in the present context, I would not vote to allow hydrofracking to take place in New York for a variety of reasons. The direct impact in large parts of the southern tier and areas where the Utica Black Shale and the Marcellus Shale are in great thickness in the subsurface of New York. At the surface, we have tourism and agriculture as the two main industries, and the hydrofracking process brings so many changes to the landscape that for all practical purposes you're not just adding hydrofracking, but you are to a certain extent substituting hydrofracking for the core industries that sustain communities and have demonstrated that they have longevity. The Apple Festival is there every year.
Right.
Whereas, as with the history of the oil and gas industry, it's a boom and bust industry. And one of the concerns I have economically is that the hydrofracking would boom for a while and then bust and leave communities that had shifted their economic sustenance from agriculture and tourism to hydrofracking. They would be left with almost nothing. And so that's a big concern. The direct negative impact on land use, drilling a well every 50 acres, of course, is what they've done in the Barnett Shale in Texas. The density is still being talked about in New York, but they're talking about going into public lands, going into forests. That requires placing new roads, habitat fragmentation. So for all practical purposes, when you look at some of the areas that have been subjected to hydrofracking in the Monongahela National Forest in Pennsylvania, for example, it looks like a subdivision. It looks like Levittown, 1946. But in fact, those are well pads. And they drill up to 6 wells per pad in radial directions. And so the activity is intense. And then there is the disposal. The disposal of the hydrofracking fluid, which can include more than 100 chemicals that a majority of which may be cancer-causing, is a real problem. You can't just take it down to the lower sewer take take those hydrochemical-laced hydrofracking fluids to coastal New York and put them, as they are talking about doing, by the way, to bring hydrofracking fluids through New York City onto Long Island and dispose of them through the ocean outfall pipes.
Wow, okay. So that affects Long Island also?
That would affect Long Island. It would affect our sole source aquifer if any of those trucks had a breakdown and spilled their contents, as well as if you look at our industrial base, our largest industries, like upstate on Long Island, are tourism and farming.
Right, right.
And it's unimaginable that people would want to frolic in the ocean beaches in hydrofracking fluids, some of which are radioactive.
Wow.
So bringing radioactive and carcinogenic fluids and dumping them into our coastal waters with the premise that the solution to pollution is dilution is unacceptable. And yet that is one of the primary disposal options that is identified in the draft generic environmental impact statement. So I'm very concerned about it for these reasons and more. We know from some recent papers that have been published that someplace between 5 and 15% of the wells that are drilled have serious leakages, and so the contamination of drinking water in the communities where the drilling is taking place is a serious consideration. So yes, I'm cautious.
Now there is a study going on right now, right? Because whether it's really helpful or, I mean, obviously there is a business impact on the one side, but then long-term effect, that's what they're trying to study right now.
That is the draft generic environmental impact statement. That study is being wrapped up now, and there are some strong indications that they're going to do a pilot program in some host communities along the southern part of the state, where some of the communities at the local government level have indicated that they want hydrofracking.
Wow, okay.
Some of the other municipalities, in some cases neighboring ones, have indicated that they do not want hydrofracking and even have passed local ordinances that would preclude that possibility. And that's been tested in court, and so far those uses of zoning power to preclude hydrofracking have been upheld in the courts. But there is much talk of putting the camel's nose under the tent with 50 wells in the first venture into this experiment with our energy resources in New York State, and the possibility that our water supplies may be contaminated as a consequence. And let me just talk about the energy consequence for a moment. It has been put forward by T. Boone Pickens and others that natural gas is a transition, a bridge from dependence upon foreign oil to a future that would include solar and other renewables. My concern is that there is so much natural gas that with this fracturing of the rock technology, this hydrofracking technology, that in fact it would not be a transition, but it would be a domestic energy substitution that would take us far into the next century and perhaps beyond. We've seen the price, for example, of natural gas drop from about $12 per cubic foot to about, right now it's less than $3, about $2.70. That's partly because we're in a recession, but nevertheless, the supply has become so extraordinarily abundant. So it's really not a bridge, it seems to me, so much as a fuel that will lock us in to hydrocarbon-based fuel and reinforce what I think was a mistake during the Reagan administration to turn away from solar, turn away from renewables, and we're having a real problem with this is the warmest year since records have been kept on the climate. We're seeing definite climatic shifts, the melting of the ice caps. We live on an island. I'm very concerned that we will potentially be exposed to flooding from global sea level rise. As a consequence of these climatic changes, one has to say, well, why are these changes taking place? And a large part of that is because since the Industrial Revolution, we have been burning hydrocarbons. And so the consequence of putting gas into the air, by the way, the leakage that I spoke of, natural gas entering into the atmosphere
is another
is another that escapes being captured during the manufacturing, or the drilling process, I should say. You know, natural gas has something between 25 and 40 times the impact of CO2. So I think we should go very strongly in the direction of renewables, and we should be energy independent. And we should make use of natural gas as a bridge fuel, but to have that open-ended is a fool's mission. We should set strong targets, and we should have a program of as much government involvement in our development of solar and wind energy, tidal energy, these renewable sources, as China has, as other nations have supported the growth and development of these industries. I know you've been involved with
solar,
with solar.
Yes.
So I tip my hat to you. I think it's important. And I hope you stay with it. And I hope that at the government level that we're able to partner with you and other entrepreneurs like you.
Thank you. We'll take a short break, sir, and then we'll come right back.
Very good.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, now, so alternative energy is kind of, to me, it's like it's out there. You just have to grab it. Okay. So obviously, that is supposed to be, that's the cleanest energy, which you, don't have to worry about any long-term effect, anything like, hydrofracking or something like that. But to, really, like the way I have seen that our manufacturing industry is kind of, had a bad effect from the outside, like a China competition. If they are able to produce at a whatever rate and then government subsidize it, Chinese government subsidize it to sell it cheaper here, therefore it affects us. Like, our cost is even higher than what we can sell for. So obviously, government, we look at government basically to do something. And do you have any kind of, can you comment on that?
Absolutely. First, to place it in perspective, when Ronald Reagan first became president, on the first day that he was in the White House, he had the solar panels removed from the top of the White House.
Wow.
And
interesting.
Pushed, as a matter of policy, in the direction of oil and gas. Now, hindsight is always 20/20. Maybe that made sense at some level, but other countries saw the potential of, as you rightly point out, of just capturing the energy from the sun and its derivatives, be they tidal or wind. And we are now in a competitive disadvantage.
Exactly.
That is something that we shouldn't, respond to by drilling more wells and going into our offshore coastal waters and creating more oil spills, such as we saw in the Gulf of Mexico. We should try to move away from that very problematic source of energy, and instead bring the governments at the federal, state, and local level into conjunction with one another, and with the entrepreneurial spirit of the private sector to really push strongly toward preparing ourselves for energy independence through the use of renewables. Some of the things that government can do are embodied in some of the bills that I've sponsored. I'm the prime sponsor of the Solar Choice Act and the Wind Net Metering Act and the Solar Net Metering Act. This year we have a bill that will provide a tax rebate for commercial users of solar to enable them to be incentivized to put solar arrays on the roofs of their industrial buildings. So we can incentivize through the use of tax abatements. We can really do things in our urban settings, places like New York City, where there are flat rooftops that run for miles in some places. And begin to incentivize investment from the private source and encourage our research institutions to increasingly make it more probable that we can have solar arrays and the manufacturing industry for solar production carried out through the use of spray technology. For example, some of the early solar devices required hand polishing certain hard materials that were photovoltaic, but you can spray materials like that now with certain thermal sprays, where you actually have an electric arc and melt the material and then cause it to cool on a surface, much like a spray gun. These are things that the government should be investing in. Research, basic research at the university level should be invested into by our government. And the patents that come out of that should be shared through the government back into the marketplace.
See, the thing is, we do a lot of research here, and like all the labs here, that we have a lot of inventions all the time. But I've been talking to many policymakers and many lawmakers, right? And the advantage of our invention is taken by somebody else. Okay, so that's the issue that we have in my mind. Now we like SIGS, SIGS technology, right? SIGS technology. That's what we wanted to manufacture solar panels based on SIGS technology, copper, indium, gallium, and selenium, which is similar thing what you said. It's like basically it sprays everything, and then it just like it created thinner than this paper layer, and that generates energy. That's a great technology, but infrastructure cost is huge to create that. Now that invention is done in our lab, and probably the advantage is taken by somebody else. And that's what we have to do something to prevent that from happening. Like, how can we do, like Senator Schumer has just, helped pass a Buy American Act, right? So those are the, there has to be no exceptions. I told Senator Schumer, I said, don't put any exceptions to the law, because people only use exceptions then to get around it.
Right.
Right? So that's why, those are the things that government can help really to increase the manufacturing in our country here.
Right. And the manufacturing sector
Right.
Has been damaged by, in some cases, careless policy,
Right.
such as you've described. But we should correct that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, countries like China are going to eat our lunch.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
we're going to find ourselves behind the eight ball in terms of our ability to renew our industrial might and ultimately to protect 60% of our population lives within 50 miles of the coastline. So
Right.
continuing to use hydrocarbon fuels is really very short-sighted if we're going to flood our coastal cities. Wall Street below several feet of water is really not going to work very well.
Right. of
Neither
course.
will Charleston,
Right.
Philadelphia,
Wow. Wow.
Boston. We have most of Florida is
California.
just above California. So
Yep.
we have real, and it is a worldwide phenomenon, worldwide rise of sea level will be a catastrophe. We have the ability to make an adjustment, but we need to do it pretty soon.
Yeah, like I was a keynote speaker at one of the Small Business Administration, energy symposium, and same thing. What you just said, that Chinese are eating your breakfast now. If you don't do anything, they'll eat lunch and then dinner.
Right.
Nothing against the country, obviously, but they are like, they're more aggressive than us. So we got to do
They're
something.
more aggressive, and ironically, much of the debate that we often hear about the role of government, we should
Right.
leave individuals
Right.
to do their
Yeah,
own
yeah.
thing and so
Yeah,
forth.
yeah,
That sounds very chest thumping, powerful words,
Yeah.
but
It doesn't help us.
it doesn't really
help us, right?
in the complex
Exactly.
realities of what we're facing
Right.
when
right.
other countries take their collective tax dollars and use it to really help drive new industries and goods into the marketplace, into the global marketplace. And so we really need to be very cautious about the government is bad, and we should minimize its role
Right.
and shrink and diminish it. Government is a tool,
Is a tool, right? Yeah.
and we should use it wisely.
Right.
It's
Yep.
And if used wisely, yes, we will have that individual power of the mind and the adventurousness of the entrepreneur being maximized. But to shrink government and to tell the entrepreneur that you're on your own, good luck.
Yeah. See, that's the problem.
That's just not wise.
Because I've heard cases like that, that the person who had a great invention here and he wanted to do something here, couldn't do anything here, could not get any support, and then Chinese government with open arm, they invited him there, they gave him everything, and he started over there and created 400 jobs there.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing, we have to think it through how to work around that.
Yes.
Not happening there. Okay.
In my district, one of the things that we have is the State University of New York at Stony Brook, the
Right.
largest employer in the
Absolutely.
Bi-County region.
Right.
And of course, they are tied in to research.
Advanced energy research.
Some of which
Right.
is at the Brookhaven National Laboratory,
Right.
which is partnered with
Right.
Stony Brook. There is an invention of sorts at the university called the incubator.
Yes.
And the incubator is basically a building that we take research out of the theoretical laboratories and allow some of the
practicality,
the technical people to, much like a young chick being incubated from an egg, to allow them to grow. That's in large part an investment of government money into the physical facility and into the larger mission of a research institution such as SUNY at Stony Brook, to allow ideas to grow and then be in readiness to go into the market. I think that's a good investment of public dollars.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a good way to use, again, some of our most important tools, our intellectual tools within our university system, is something that I think we should continue to invest into, and to understand that that will be an investment of public dollars, and one of the ways that government can help get value-added activity that will create hundreds, if not thousands, of new jobs, and help drive our economy and make us globally competitive.
Now, viewers of our show is mostly South Asian, people from South Asia, right? So, what do you think of us? What is the contribution of South Asian population in 4th District? In your district?
A large portion of that population in my district is involved with the State University at Stony Brook. Many of the brightest minds that we have are individuals from South Asia. We have the great benefit of their creative genius to help push the envelope of knowledge in our largest of the campuses throughout the state. So one cannot overestimate or overstate the significance of the contributions made by those individuals. They're part of the story of America today, and so while they may have originated in India or China or Taiwan, we claim them today as our newest citizens in many cases, and indeed that is the melting pot that is America. So these are extraordinary individuals, and I am so very proud to have a chance to represent many of them.
And I'm sure you would be open to have any interns, because there are a lot of young boy and girls. They are very sharp, very bright, and if they need an internship in your office or something, because see, what is our show here? That
I would welcome that.
Yeah, we want to create a bridge, right? That's the focus of this show here, and we want to see that our the South Asian community is obviously seen out somewhere, right? Because, and that's how we would like to ask you if you can mentor some of our people here, from the community. That would be great too, because you got so much knowledge and
send them over. I would love to interview them, and we have a internship program in the Assembly, and to the extent that we can set up a structural relationship so that there is a regular interaction between that pool of young talent, college age talent, and our internship program. Any way I can help to reinforce that, I would like to do.
Okay, and you are also a chair of the government operations, which includes government efficiencies. How do you increase the efficiencies within the government, right? So, obviously, what is your views on shared government services? Because mostly, every government agencies, obviously their mission is different, but at the end of the day, they do a lot of similar things.
Right.
So,
shared services obviously is a way to effectuate cost cutting, and to bring agencies together. They, as you rightly point out, really are supposed to be serving the same public. They should be talking to one another and sharing technology and sharing methodologies for seeking efficiencies, rather than being in parallel universes that are hardly aware of each other. We've seen too much of that silo arrangement where there's very minimal dialogue taking place. That's just unacceptable due to its inefficiencies and its costs.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense in my mind anyway.
Absolutely.
You know, because hey, listen, it's economics. It makes economic sense as well as the practical sense, right? So obviously.
Absolutely.
Okay, and you're running again at the for the assembly this November, and obviously, you know, we're going to ask the voters to, you know, watch for you on the voting booth, and you know, obviously, you have contributed a lot in the assembly, and we want to continue, you know, you to do that, right? So
I would look forward to a chance to continue to serve my community and the people of the state in a larger sense. And so I'm standing for re-election. I ask people to take a look at my record, look at my involvement with the advancement of bills such as the solar bills that I've mentioned, the transition toward renewables that I have championed. I would like to continue to do that. My work on environmental protection and preservation, drinking water preservation, public health, all of these things, I think I've made a contribution that I would like to try to continue.
thank you so much, and we want to wish you the best, you know, for this election. And I'm sure I don't have any doubt in my mind, but you know, still it's not done until it's done. So, any final message for the viewers?
Well, I think the main message I would have is for your viewership to recognize that government can be tamed, can be advanced and put forward as a very positive partner with people as they and their families strive to improve and make as much of a contribution as they possibly can, not only to their own well-being, but to the well-being of the community at large. And we're all in this together. And
that's correct.
I think it really does make sense for us to hang together so that we don't hang separately. So let me know if there are ways for me to partner further with you as we go forward. And I look forward to a chance to come back and visit with you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, email me at rajmitv@gmail.com. Again, it's rajmitv@gmail.com. Until next time, see you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj.